60-plus Racing Adventures is the iRacing league for drivers 60 years of age or older. This is the Truck Series from Chicagoland Speedway, 1.5 mile speedway ahead of us for 60-plus Racing Adventures. It's live on RaceSpotTV. David Haynes with Lorenzo Bonda. Looks like a beautiful day in the Chicago area. Beautiful day for 60-plus Racing Adventures. How are we feeling about this one, Lorenzo?
Should be interesting. It's 1.5 mile track, but it doesn't have that 1.5 mile feeling just because it's mostly banked, right? You still have some considered bank on the back stretch of the track, and it's very fast. The only downside is, unfortunately, in real life, the track is inactive. Good that we can drive it virtually.
Yeah, Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois. Do you know what is active? Is Autobahn Country Club, where I've raced just over the road. This is the round, and the schedules for 60-plus Racing Adventures Truck Series began at Charlotte. This is round 2 from Chicagoland with Darlington, Daytona, Five Flags, Gateway, Michigan, Milwaukee, Nashville, New Hampshire, Pocono, and Texas. Still ahead of us. This is the only round that we expect to bring you live on RaceSpotTV for the moment. So let's see what the trucks will turn out here. And after that first round at Charlotte, John Payne leads the points ahead of Mike Grandy, Jack Turner, Rick Helms, John Shermatz, David Traynor, TG Reese, Jerry Kerr, Dave Watson, Douglas Beasley, Robert Love, and John Hay. They've just ticked over into qualifying right now, which is going to set the grid for the race coming. Look at those track conditions, Lorenzo. Early start, but for a beautiful day.
Yeah, only 70 degrees Fahrenheit, not one of the, hottest tracks, especially because it is early in the morning, 7:41 a.m. So this might actually progress as the race goes on, but it's cool and mild, so everybody can have really fast laps. You can even see, from first nearly to last place, the gap is only 0.2 of a second, which at a track like this, they decided to, let's leave the dueling out on the track, because this will drive like a pack race of sorts, just because of how cold the track conditions are right now.
So over in the background in the distance, Joliet, Illinois, home of the Slammers, and a pizza that I ate once. I think this is looking like quite a few of our drivers have wrapped up their qualifying. John Payne's up top at the moment. The margins are, of course, super close. Mike Grandy, David Traynor, Bobby Love, JC Hay, all within 10th of a second of pole. See Jerry Kerr driving down the pit road right now in search of where his crew is going to be in the race.
What is going to be interesting for me here, David, is just really quickly is how, the battle for the lead is going to go, because even though Chicagoland is a fast track, there's the shallow banking of sorts compared to, let's just say, the other 1.5 miles that we normally see on the calendar, like Charlotte, for example, is so shallow that it actually is more prone to the cars to get a little more, slidey and tends to lean on the rear more than you're probably going to think of during your reacceleration on these trucks. So there's a good chance you might lose the car at some points like that. So it's gonna have some tire management in my point of view, even though the track, like I said before, track conditions are cold, but they need to be cautious to not overdrive the car, because this is one of the tracks I can easily say from experience is easy for you to overdrive, especially if you're trying to crawl up the field from, let's just say, P11 or P12, which would be TG Reese's position at the moment.
Of course, 3 models of truck possible: the Toyota, the Chevrolet, and the Ford. Ram coming soon? Question mark. This is a look at that grid now that it's set in stone. John Payne on pole, just fractionally ahead of Mike Grandy, David Traynor, Bobby Love, and JC Hay. Rick Helms also super close in his pace. We'll start from 6th. Then Jerry Kerr, we saw him driving down the pit road in his Silverado. Douglas Beasley's 8th, Bob Cohen 9th, Jack Turner 10th, and Dave Watson 11th. TG Reese didn't go out on track in qualifying from what I can see, and you've only got a couple of Fords here on the grid as well. I think they should have a rampage for NASCAR.
If I'm correct, David, I think Chicagoland also boasts still has the record for the closest finish ever recorded in IndyCar history, doesn't it?
Yeah, IndyCar Series came here from 2001 to 2010. It was the season finale for a couple of years in there. It seems like the kind of track that in the 2000s era of IndyCar would have given some pretty close racing when they had a lot of close racing on ovals like this. Field's gridding up ready for the formation lap. We've got the iRacing sedan pace car today, one of an increasing number of options. You can have the Porsche 911, you can have the Ford Mustang FR500S, you can have the truck, which is unbranded but looks a lot like a Silverado, and they roll away to get this formation lap underway. 1.5 mile speedway should be giving us just the single formation lap, and indeed the lights are already out on our pace vehicle. The driver's looking for a little bit of temperature, feel out the setup for their truck, and your key things, of course, in a race like this around the 1.5 miles where things were super close in qualifying is how do these trucks behave in the draft and the slipstream, and how does the tyre wear and the fuel consumption factor?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, I think there will be some tire management, because it is very easy for you to lose the grip of the car, especially on a long run. Even if you have draft right behind you, because the shallow banking and how the radius of the corner just come into you, especially when you migrate into the backstretch of sorts. So this is going to be a very interesting track for us to follow for the next laps in this race.
Under the control of the pace car, ready for 60 Plus Racing Adventures Truck Series to get underway. The field rolls through 3 and 4. Virtual grandstands virtually full with our front row of John Payne and Mike Grandy. Toyota on the inside, Silverado on the high side. The pace car pulls away. Barney with the green flag is ready at the start-finish line to send us racing, and that he will do. The trucks roar into life along the front straight and towards turns 1 and 2. The outside driver of Grandy carrying a lot of momentum, and already drivers trying different lines. Looks like David Traynor might be trying a really high line as John Payne has gone down low. Bobby Love actually gaining some positions. I didn't mean to say Love actually, as they head into 3 and 4. The pole sitter has converted so far, but you're already seeing that high line work well through 1 and 2, but now costing spots to Bobby Love through 3 and 4.
And I wonder if Love actually scratched the wall a little bit on the entry of turn number 3 right there, David, which might have made him lose a little bit of time and relinquish basically that third place, but it's still hands-on on that high line. There's no draft in it. He basically drives it clearly. Of course, it's going to get a little bit more heat, but in a long race like this, I think being free of the draft, despite losing a little bit of grip, might be a good trade-off.
Over the line, it's still John Payne leading from Mike Grandy and David Traynor. Bobby Love with the new fastest lap of the race as he's trying out his high line through 1 and 2. Looks like it's really strong there. Looked like it was costing him a little bit through 3 and 4. Carries extra speed and momentum onto the back straight. So does David Traynor. Slightly bent back straight brings them into 3 and 4. But once again, trying those super high lines. Just doesn't look like it works as well there as it does through 1 and 2, but you've got a top 6 breakaway with the gap forming behind JC Hay back to Bob Cohen, Douglas Beasley, Jack Turner, Dave Watson. TG Reese did take the start from the final spot on the grid, and Jerry Kerr's in 12th. Beasley picks up a new fastest lap of the race. So some interesting things happening, including side-by-side for the race league now, as Grandy looks to put the nose of his Silverado underneath John Payne and go for the race lead in turn 3.
Yeah, and he's going to get the entry advantage against Payne right there, but Payne might actually get a little bit of a better run on the outside by sticking in very closely. And he's going to regain the lead coming into lap number 4. Actually, lap number 5.
So it's Payne ahead across the line, but now with the outside run through 1 and 2, he'll get ahead of Mike Grandy. This is the view from back in 3rd and 4th, watching the leaders go nose to nose, trading that lead. David Traynor pitches into the banking, takes a bit of a middle line. Maybe you're looking for a bit of clean air through some of those corners on your nose if you can. Mike Grandy slots ahead out of 4 across the line. He leads our group, and still it's a top 6 breakaway. Those fast laps happening from the next group, not bringing them much closer to this race leading pack. Bobby Love all the way up high. Rick Helms middle of the track. Mike Grandy, the race leader, getting all the way down towards the apron. Varying lines coming into play in 1 and 2. 3 and 4 looking a little bit more like that low line still has dominance, but as the tyres heat up, as the tyres begin to wear, they are looking for different ways to use as much of the banking, carry as much speed as possible, navigating Chicagoland Speedway.
Yeah, eventually this pack will break away at some point, because there will be some tire degradation as this run goes on. There's simply no way you can drive yourself cleanly for your whole summer of your stint, David. So we expect basically, I would say about 20-something laps, but of course, like I said before, there's not a lot of heat in the track, which helps out the drivers managing the tires a little bit, even though it's not going to be scorching hot. But the tires, in that, helps the tire degradation. It becomes lesser and lesser as we're going to look what happened to Bob Cohen, who sits currently in P12. He's 2 laps down. I think he's just coming back from the pits.
Yeah, one of the drivers to stop. Typically for a track like this, if the trucks look loose, you're managing the tyre temperature in the right rear. If the trucks look a bit tight, you're managing the tyre temperature in the right front. I think we're managing the wear and the temperature on the right front at the moment in this first stint in this 75-lap race.
Great.
Mike Grandy's got the cool air on his nose. John Payne following him on the low line. But if you're really starting to roast that right front, then the higher line through the corners might work out. It's where David Traynor went and carried so much momentum onto the back straight, getting right to the truck bed of John Payne in second place there. Helms and Bobby Love side by side off of 4, with Bobby Love in the 44 truck up high. Again, I think that's where you want to be for 1 and 2 for sure. Look for Bobby Love to carry more momentum around Rick Helms.
I can even see he nearly rides up the safe Armco barrier right there on the outside of turn number 1 and 2, which is the good thing you really want to do as Rick Helms moves up in front. I was going to say move up in front, but it was already in front. And Trainer looks on the inside of John Payne to go into second place, as Payne, I think, starting to show some struggles into that number 2 Toyota Tundra.
Payne's definitely been one of the drivers sort of riding low against the apex. Maybe he's beginning to drop back a tiny bit. Mike Grandy's got the biggest race lead we've seen anyone have. John Payne swoops round the outside in 1 on David Trainer. Rick Helms goes around the outside of him as well. Helms starting to look a little bit stronger. Fended off Bobby Love. Now trying to move past David Trainer and go with John Payne. Leader's gap comes down just a little bit. And up there, sort of 2 seams high of the apron, Rick Helms carrying a whole lot of speed in the 75.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is always those things, right? Into these 1.5 mile ovals, right, David? You can carry so much speed around the corners that sometimes when you come into the front stretch or even in the back stretch, that might actually be a little bit of overdrive as Helms goes into second place, shoots a little bit more than probably wanted to into the entry of turn number 3, but carries it out just fine on 4. And we have a new top 3 now.
Yeah, mid-stint in the run, Rick Helms suddenly becoming one of the drivers to watch. Bobby Love in 5th here, just behind David Trainer. Gently curving on the back straight before the banking picks up and they pitch into 3. Love stays high behind Trainer. John Payne down low there. Race leader down low and Rick Helms directly following him. Looks like Bobby Love carries good momentum there. Staying with this top group is absolutely what you want to do when it's pack racing like this.
Yeah, but
AC Hayes caught them.
Yeah, absolutely. He's becoming a bigger train now. Basically, I would say top 7 is in a big train of cars right now, which is always a good thing on our books. By the way, David, notice Trainer's car when he approaches out of turn number 4 and he migrates into the front stretch. His car started to get a little bit loose on the exit of 4 into the front stretch. And we know that Safeco barrier is always there as a message to the drivers: do not overdrive your car, otherwise I'm here and I'm going to throw you out. And this is going to become a recurring theme, especially as the lap goes on to the later stint. And we're going to maybe see some cars getting loose on the exit of the corners as we take a look at Tropicana.
Director is thirsty for some juice. Maybe he needs some vitamin C. No doubt. Dave Watson running 9th right now. You can see that JC Hay, Jack Turner, they've caught back up to that leading group. TG Reese has moved from 12th on the grid up into 8th. Dave Watson there into 9th. Douglas Beasley running 10th. Still holds the fastest lap of the race. Must have picked up a pretty good slipstream while the tyres were still fresh, because they're not matching that pace right now. The race leader, Mike Grandy's best lap is 30.5. His last lap, 31.2. So almost a second of pace drop off at the moment. And moving up through the field just a little bit. Bob Cohen would have some of the fresher tyres, so he's almost looking to unlap himself here. That's the tyre delta that Cohen has got. Everyone else ought to sort of take note of what 5 to 10 lap fresher tyres does for you. Still a long way ahead in this race. Mike Grandy, 0.8 of a second on Rick Helms. If Helms has got something more to give, he needs to prevent Mike Grandy from breaking away.
Yeah, especially that the point difference is just 1 point. Payne has 30 points. Grandy has 29 because he actually had a no incidents extra point. So if you get no incidents, you get an extra point at the end of the race, and then in this instance is what helped out by Grandy in the long run for the end of the first round. Thus, we'll be taking the lead in the championship as we currently stand on right now.
Says Mike Grandy, and then a lead, and then a whole hornet's nest of a pack. Rick Helms and John Payne battling over second and third. Bob Cohen trying to unlap himself off of them. And David Traynor and Bobby Love and JC Hay. Rick Helms is up high in turns 1 and 2. As he's done for a lot of this race, John Payne, keeping the nose of his truck low, does not get a good run at all off that corner there. Now has Bob Cohen to his outside. Cohen treading very, very carefully here, but with clearly a bit more grip and speed at the moment. Here he goes. He can place himself wherever he wants, including going from up high to down low, getting underneath Rick Helms. Where you go, he'll follow. He'll go wherever you will go. Mike Grandy's lead out to 1.5 seconds as these guys are losing time, not sure how to navigate what Bob Cohen is doing, and clearly not with the end of stint speed that Grandy has been able to hold on to.
Plus, they're not going to be able to hold that down line efficiently, down line 1 on the bottom lane, as efficient as Cohen does. Of course, that grip level just helps out the 4F150 of the number 32, which is not only needing Mike Grandy for him to get himself at least a lap 1 time. He's still going to be 1 lap down, and no matter what happens at the current moment, he's still the lucky dog, unless Jerry Kerr has something to say about it.
Jerry Kerr making a pit stop right now. See if a few other drivers begin to think about it. Still short of the 1/3 race distance when I'd start to sort of think about it. Jerry Kerr getting his service done. Of course, your pit stall moves from qualifying to the race because it ends up set by race, by qualifying order for the race. That looked like 4 tyres for Jerry Kerr. You saw both sides of the truck go. Something to keep an eye on when we do get to the pit stops. The driver's thinking 4 tyres or just 2 tyres. My gut feeling would be go 4 tyres the first time around, go 2 tyres at a second stop if that's how it ends up working out. Crossing the line, beginning another lap. Rick Helms looking tiny bit out of sorts here with David Traynor around the outside and Bobby Love too. 2 seconds to Mike Grandy. What was a lead that was very difficult to break suddenly has a gap emerging as the tyres wear, as the corners become tougher to stay flat through. The effect of the slipstream becomes reduced. The advantage of clean air becomes increased. And Mike Grandy's putting a little bit of time into his back pocket, reaching the end of this stint.
If we notice that the word about these 1.5 mile tracks, right, David, is, I'm trying to find a better word. Air is life, right? Clean air is life. There isn't other tracks that you'd see that are gonna have the effect of, you know, being able to do pack racing the entire time. I think the only track in NASCAR that can run a pack race from nearly start to finish is Atlanta Speedway, right? Which is the Echo Park Speedway. Now, and other than that, there's not any other track that has that kind of feeling for the drivers, regardless if it is on the top division to the entry division on our car.
Rick Helms got absolutely cooked there. David Traynor and Bobby Love going around the high side of him as he stayed low against the apron. He had no grip, no momentum, no traction. He's dropped back to 4th here as Traynor goes to 2nd. Bobby Love went to 3rd. John Payne just behind Helms in 5th. So some drivers that were up front beginning to fade a little bit. See, this is Helms again, trying this low line, not gaining much momentum on the way through, not carrying momentum off. Traynor and Love move further ahead and in fact just cut a tiny bit out of Mike Grandy's lead. He's experiencing a little bit of traffic right now. I think Jerry Kerr or Bob Cohen, maybe Bob Cohen trying to unlap himself, maybe where Jerry Kerr fed back out after his pit stop, just costing a little bit of time to Mike Grandy. Cohen got around and it was costing Grandy just a tiny bit as we go side by side for 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, and once again, I was going to say they were going faster, but Grandy's last lap was a 31.92, whereas Love did a 9.3 and Traynor did a 9.5. So it's those marginal gains and things like that that help out the lead whenever they have these kind of battles. So what was about 2 seconds extended 2.4 just in 1 lap, and we're going to see John Payne moving into 4th place as he just goes on the inside of Rick Helms.
Yeah, those guys going side by side. Gain the outside off of turn 2 gives you so much more momentum. Rick Helms gets back in front. John Payne persists with running the low line below the first seam and up against the apron. Just seen a bit of Mike Grandy. Then comes the rest of the field. Still got JC Hay and Jack Turner sitting off the back of this. And 1 second, 2 second becomes not so much when you think about the pit stops coming up and the variation that could happen there, as they would need to approach the pit entry, get square in their boxes. There's room for so much variation and someone to jump or lose 2 or 3 seconds very easily. Rick Helms positioning himself as John Payne looks to gain a little bit of track position back. Can't get clear of David Trainor's nose though, so he has to check it up coming out of turn 4. Trainor will stay in third, but John Payne starting to come back through this group.
And I don't think Payne wants to stay on that inside forever. David, you get a little bit of a better entry, but because you have used tires, it's hard for you to carry the speed over from that inside line to the exit of turn number 2 and still be consistent with it and stay side by side with the number 38. Eventually, you're gonna have to fold into the higher lines and try to come off the normal line traction. And in that case, that's why we didn't see Payne make a move and capitalize on the overtake on the last few laps.
Just a couple laps shy of the halfway mark of this 75-lap race. I'm going to jinx it right now, Lorenzo. It's run green and caution-free.
Yep.
And Payne getting just underneath David Trainor here. Going to move back in towards that top 3. Gets a little bit of side draft there, it would seem. Has the shorter run across the D of the start-finish line. And now he gets well clear going down into turns 1 and 2. Can take the full arc of the track up. Does wash just a little bit wide. But that's a good move, and that's how to make a pass work. Carrying speed down low into turns 1 and 2. John Payne moves up into 3rd. David Trainor back into 4th. Now needs to worry about Rick Helms. Bobby Love has taken a little bit more time again out of Mike Grandy. Grandy's lead's been as high as 2.5 seconds. It's now 1.5 seconds and fading. Jack Turner pits from 8th.
Hard. It was about 1.5, 2 seconds, 2.2 in like 5-6 laps ago. Now reduced to 1.3, and that is just going down. Bobby just being very consistent on his laps. I've been seeing 31.8s flying over from the number 44 in the past few laps. His line's a little bit risky when you come off the number 4 turn right there, but still as effective as heck, as he runs another 31.8 again, taking 0.3 off the leader of the race.
I've been to Buc-ee's. I grabbed a 6-pack of beer. I went to the counter. They said, "We can't sell this to you. Your Australian ID is no good." I had to go back into the car, grab my passport, go back in, buy the beer. Other than that, great selection of stuff. And Bobby Love is closing in now to within 1 second of Mike Grandy, the race leader. So where is the time going? Is Grandy now just beginning to equalize on tires with Bob Cohen, beginning to feel the dirty air from Cohen, and maybe that's costing him a little bit? You can see there's sort of 0.8 of a second from Cohen to where Mike Grandy is. Cohen had that tire advantage, unlapped himself, but now we've had this long run. Things ought to be equalizing, and Grandy, the pole setter, has been one of the quickest drivers. He's down low now, trying to get clean air relative to where Bob Cohen is, and the traffic is what's done this, I think. Bobby Love to within 0.7 of the lead, 3 laps away from the halfway point. If you're doing the strategy around tyres, that might be when you look to go lap 37 or lap 38.
Yeah, something like that. You know, in NASCAR, the good old saying that we know, that we give to Andreas Racing, let's just say, we've commentated this more than once, right, David? Traffic gives, traffic takes, right? The same is applied to NASCAR. Sometimes the different strategy that you have from the back markers on the field might play to your advantage or not. And the worst thing is, for oval racing, there's no blue flags. There's non-existent. You would do that more on a gentleman's agreement, but you're trying to take your lap down, trying to maintain yourself within the lead lap or within the lucky dog, and that's what Bob Cohen tried to do the best, because Jerry Kerr is not that far away from potentially being lapped by Grandy.
So what's going on here? Is this tactical from Mike Grandy? Has he seen a fuel-saving opportunity? Are his tyres really going away? Or has he got some other problem? Because his lead is evaporating quickly. Bobby Love closing in on the race leader, Mike Grandy. Douglas Beasley hits pit lane as we cross halfway. Bob Cohen has a slide and a spin. He's out of there. Mike Grandy has clean air, and it brings out the first caution exactly at the halfway point. First and second beginning to bear down on him. The right rear lets go, and Bob Cohen has a snap coming out of turn 2. Yellow on the speedway.
Interesting. That is going to make the race very interesting for everybody, as we already went halfway across, basically, right, David? That is going to restart about lap 42. Drivers are going to have, give or take, about 30-something laps, 30, 33, 34 laps of pure green tires. And we're going to look what happened to Bob Cohen, merging in apparently from the front to the back, front stretch into the back stretch. Out of number 2, the car probably is going to slide off to turn number 2, hitting the wall potentially.
It's a bit high in 1, and then a wiggle there in 2. Rear snaps. That was actually quite odd. In front on, it looked like he was leaning on the rear tyre a little bit, and it was a bit loose and just giving it too much wheel. Field coming around to pit road. Everyone a taker except some of the lap down cars. So it looks like Jerry Kerr's going to stay out. Jack Turner's going to stay out. Those guys, having already stopped, are going to get back on the lead lap. So I think that's the right move from them. But it's a race down to the crews for Grandy, Love, Payne, Trainer, Rick Helms. Is this a point where you look to grab a little bit of track position going only 2 tyres? Or with a long run of 35 laps still to go to get to the checkered flag, 4 tyres might be the way to go if you're going to go all the way to the end from here, which we expect you would. What you don't want to do is overshoot your pit crew like happened just there. Service underway. Grandy the first to hit his marks. That's left side tyres definitely happening for Bobby Love. Grandy's out of here with a pit stop time of 14 seconds. That's about what everyone's doing. I think we're seeing 4 tyre stops from all with a densely packed field and a long run to go. That seems the right way to go about it.
And John Payne getting a massive jump from 3rd to 2nd place. That is going to be big on the remainder of the race, because now Grandy's going to have the leader of the championship right on his back bumper.
So Jerry Kerr and Jack Turner do get back on the lead lap. Douglas Beasley as well. Bob Cohen looks to pit now. After bringing out the first caution of this race, just past the halfway point. That simplifies the strategy for basically everyone inside of the top 8 positions, as they've all pitted together on the same lap, just past the halfway point, and looked to take 4 tyres. Jumps John Payne back up. Surely the second stint of this race with the lights out on the pace car will look relatively similar to what the first half of the race looked like. Those who were quick on fresh tyres initially will look quick again, and then we need that pace to stay with them for the final run. Slightly quicker, slightly shorter final stint for Mike Grandy might just save him, because Bobby Love and David Trainer, they were looking so strong towards the end of the tyre run. Into 3 and 4 we go, with the pace car about to pull down. 2 wide restart. Lights off the iRacing sedan. Feels ready to go. 3-minute pit stop for Bob Cohen. He might have towed with that time. Everyone else near identical, between 14 and 15 seconds. Here's the pace car ready to go. Here's Mike Grandy, pole sitter, race leader, ready to restart from the same spot. The inside of the front row. Green flag waves, and he's going. John Payne, not a great getaway. David Trainer's going to have the low line on him into turns 1 and 2 as they all get up to speed, building their momentum. Engines roaring, going up through the gears, which you normally don't have to do in green flag conditions, but from a restart, you're going to have to pull a couple of gears, getting up to pace onto the back straight. Mike Grandy coming across to take a wide sweeping arc. Bobby Love moving ahead of David Trainer as they go side by side through 3 and 4.
And good restart from Payne this time, already attacking the outside line. Basically did what Bobby Love did the majority of his stint early on. Don't attack the inside, and potentially now he's going to go in the charge. Force Granny use them more that right front on the entry at turn number 1, 2, 3, and 4. All corners. And with that, John Payne is going to retain the lead once again.
John Payne leads them into 3. Bobby Love up high. Look at the amount of momentum he's strung up. He's got his nose in front before even the exit of the corner, carrying heaps of speed onto the front straight. He leads at the line, beginning lap 44 of 75 for 60 Plus Racing Adventures Truck Series. He still stays high, even with the nose in the clean air.
Oh.
John Payne goes low, a couple of sliders. That's up in the wall. Who's up in the wall? Rick Helms. Damage for him, clearly.
I was going to say he hit the quarter panel, the fender with Granny coming into turn number 1 and 2, apparently.
Stays green, but Rick Helms rode the wall through turns 1 and 2 and clearly has some damage dropping to the very back of the field. A driver that was challenging for a podium is now out of those spots. Bobby Love, 0.3 of a second on John Payne. Mike Grandy's looking to go around the outside of him onto the back straight, side by side as well for Trainer and Turner. Turner getting a little bit of a gift, I think, with the timing of the caution coming out. He had only just pitted, brought him right back into the pack. Looking at Helms, the 75 has a snap, has a slide, now coming down across the start-finish line. And there's Trainer just behind him as we head into 1. And looking to go high, looking to go around the outside, has a slide, which gets his nose into the other car. Then he snaps up high, rides the wall, damage, losing momentum, losing spots, and into the pit lane once again.
Yeah, fortunate for him, and that was on the turn number 1 and 2, so I was correct on that instance. But that's unfortunate to see Helms in the pit lane. Basically, your race is going to be done and dusted. You're going to try to fix the damage a little bit quick, David, hoping to see a safety car. As if that ever happens, he's going to be the lucky dog.
Side by side, the race lead, Mike Grandy coming back at Bobby Love. Grandy on the low side, turning in early. So this is Helms on the outside. I think about here he gets a snap of oversteer, which puts his nose down into Grandy, then corrects, bounces up into the grey once you're right there up against the wall, and then does damage to his truck riding the barrier around the outside there. Mike Grandy not able to get clear of Bobby Love. He's the high side merchant right now, Bobby Love. In that third groove again. He'll be hoping that pays dividends in a long run as well, saving his tyres. It's giving him so much momentum right now. Behind them, John Payne low on David Trainer. Jack Turner in 5th, watching on. Payne in sort of the second lane. Mike Grandy has a look at the second lane. Bobby Love unable to be removed from the third groove through both ends of the racetrack.
Yeah. You know what's interesting for me, though, is now this has become a top 9 battle. I'll bring you back to you, David. Everybody has a chance, even those the guys at the back like Douglas Beasley and Dave Watson still have a chance moving forward into this race as Love and Grandy still remain side by side.
Grandy gets clear on the low line, comes up, so Bobby Love swaps back down low. This is going to displace him from that third groove. Grandy just got clear enough to claim the high side of the racetrack. Bobby Love trying to run the second groove. We're on board with John Payne's perspective of it. Bobby Love just back to the race lead. Both of them giving a little bit of love to the apron, coming towards the start-finish line. Someone who can save tyres and be quick in the final 5 laps of this race could be a real threat, particularly as you watch first and second continue to battle each other, put themselves on odd lines, have little slides and digs, and Bobby Love again trying to go around the outside of Mike Grandy. David Trainer getting to the inside of John Payne. Jack Turner needs to be careful because TG Reese is coming up into 6th. JC Hay in 7th there as well. So from no qualifying, back of the grid, Reese starting to find his element there in 6th. Looks quite loose from Love.
Yeah, he did. Coming out of 2 right there. But that's the danger, you know, staying on that outside lane quite a lot. You're going to heat up your tires a little bit more than the normal. So keeping control, especially when you come out of the high banking into still shallower high banking, makes the cars a little bit unsettled. And it's a sudden approach. You go from 18-degree banking into the 11-degree banking on the front stretch, and in the back stretch is 5 degrees. It's even a steeper yet shallow transition that can get you by surprise depending on the grooves.
Rick Helms with a repaired truck and fresh tyres has the fastest lap of the race, 4 laps down in 11th place. So it's not blistering pace from our leaders here as they wear out their tyres, try to take different lanes, get pressed onto tight lines. Helms, unfortunately, not part of it. Goes to demonstrate the advantage that fresh tyres can give you. It's John Payne up high on David Traynor. They continue to go side by side. Grandy has slightly more cemented himself into the race lead ahead of Bobby Love. Reese up into 5th ahead of Turner and Hay now. Don't dream it's over. David Traynor in 4th is where a lot of the action is happening right now, but Reese is getting to his bumper.
Yeah, I think this is as high as Reese has ever been in this race, hasn't he? As he moves on the inside of the number 38, he's eventually going to get a run. If he can solidify that on turn number 1 and 2, he's going to get that 4th place and get ever closer to Payne and all the rest of the guys into the top 3.
So it's side by side for 2nd, was side by side for 4th. Reese almost pulled out of it, dropped in behind David Traynor. John Payne low on Bobby Love right now. I reckon Love's probably got the preferred line, especially out of 4, but not slipstreaming up on Grandy as Grandy stays a tiny bit higher. Love has to come down low to cover off the inside on John Payne. So we dive into 1. Payne gets his nose low. The rest of them stay in that 3rd groove once again. It's now in the shade of the sponsorship signage as well. So as far as the dynamic track temperature goes, if you can look for a tiny bit of cooler track, that might be it. Not just because it's the high line, but because of the way the shade is falling on the racetrack right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see there's no cloudy skies or anything like that that would help out the issue. I even wonder, I think your drivers, the opponent driver's shadow might help out a little bit on these occasions. You can only see maybe some shadows on the very inside portions of the racetrack right there, but it's still very minimal. I don't know if you would consider that a massive help with how everything that has been going. Oh, a little bit of a contact for Love outside of turn number 4.
Mike Grandy slowly beginning to eke out a lead for himself as well. 6/10 as 2nd and 3rd battle. Love's around the outside of John Payne. He looks to get ahead on the entrance and mid-corner, but all about the momentum off the corner, which again goes in favour of Bobby Love. We're watching from David Traynor in 4th. TG Reese has just dropped a couple of tenths back off of him to 3 or 4 truck lengths back, no longer right at his rear bumper as he was earlier. Out to start, lap 60 with just 15 to go. So if you're saving the tyres for a late race charge and you think you're going to hunt down Mike Grandy, it's about time to get moving, as it sort of becomes a bit of a top 5. Seeing JC Hay and Jack Turner begin to just fade a little bit off of that group, particularly of Love, Payne, Traynor and Reese that you have in 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th.
Yeah, absolutely. But what's interesting for me, nevertheless, is you can see Hay in 6th place, 8/10 of a sec. Let's just give like 2 to 3 laps. These guys going side by side, and Hay gets a little bit of a clean air going into the corners and get some better pace. He can come into this one and make this a little bit of a fun battle. As Douglas Beasley going to 8th place, switch places with Dave Watson, and now he's the last guy into this massive 1st to 9th train that we have on this pack race. 61 out of 75 laps completed.
John Payne beginning to use a lot of the apron there across the start-finish line in behind Bobby Love. Looking to get to the inside. Love ripping an even higher line than sort of the third groove. That's sort of 3.5 through turn 1 there. Bobby Love now 7/10, but slowly closing in Mike Grandy. John Payne also running high with him right now. David Traynor closely behind Reese, dropping a few tenths further back. Looking like top 4 in a second between Reese and JC Hay for the first time. Payne goes low. Oh, I think Love might have got just a tiny bit of the barrier coming off turn 2 as well, which is where we saw Bob Cohen spin previously. So maybe he's starting to come under a little bit of pressure, particularly as he watches what John Payne is doing low through 3 and 4. Mike Grandy walks it up to the wall. Bobby Love walks it up to the wall. John Payne keeps the truck tight.
I think deep down inside, I think secretly speaking, I believe that Payne really wants to ride that outside lane a little bit more than he probably wants to, so he can get closer to Bobby Love and make that overtake. But like you said before, Love has been the high line merchant all race long. He hasn't gone down basically from that bottom lane. But I think this might be different. I think he grinded the wall a little bit and lost some speed in between 3 and 4, and that allowed Payne to come in. But it's not a huge gain that Payne had.
It's Bob Cohen rejoining this race after a pit stop, staying low and out of the way as he exits the pit lane. That is the pit exit line here at this speedway. Now more than a second lead for Mike Grandy. If they're going to catch him, they need a big tyre fade, and there's not a lot of traffic for Grandy this time around, like seemed to have hurt him at the end of the first stint. So his lead pushes out to 1.2 seconds. The pole sitter built a lead in the first stint. It collapsed rapidly, and then the caution came out. Stayed close at the start of this stint, then begun to build a lead. Is it going to collapse in the final 5 laps or so? It's going to need to collapse super quickly if the final 10 laps are going to stop Mike Grandy winning this one.
Everything seems to be going on Grandy's way. The only one guy that is doing like 6 and 0.6, 0.7s around the racetrack. Everybody else is doing 0.8, 0.9s. As Payne, I think, just said, you know, I'm going for it. Go for broke. The question is, can he get second place though without giving third place away to David Traynor, who's looking fresh on those tires, just waiting for the moment to properly pounce on both of them.
This is that new tyre effect again. Bob Cohen's unlapping himself off of these guys with these fresh tyres. He's just gone by Jack Turner and JC Hay. John Payne's trying to get by Bobby Love through one. Payne's looked a couple of times to the inside there to no success. Look at how Bob Cohen behind them is going to look like he's driving a totally different class of vehicle as he just pops underneath David Traynor like it's nothing, pops underneath the lot of them like it's absolutely nothing, because his tyres are worth about a second a lap more than these guys. He drops in between, and it's not what Love and Payne need in these final couple of laps. Is Bob Cohen mixing it up in between. Cohen down low, trying to pick them off. Mike Grandy's lead going out to nearly 2 seconds.
Yeah, and I think at this occasion, the gap is so big for Cohen to reach Grandy that even if he reached him, the after effect of him giving some dirty air to Grandy is not going to be enough for like P2, P3, and P4 eventually to come closer, unless we get a yellow flag that would turn this race around as we have 6 to go into this race.
Into turn 3. Bobby Love just touches the seam, gets close to the wall, has a bit of a slide here. I think he's lost his momentum, but I'm almost seeing John Payne looked to push him. Now Payne looks to go around the outside towards one. That's a wedge that's going to close. And I think the nose touches bumper. It's a fine, fine line between Love and Payne. And Payne goes down the inside of one. Is going to look to move up and cover off Bobby Love. Can't quite do it. Love keeps the nose of his truck around the outside. Now tries to drop inside. Looks like John Payne has second place at a crucial, crucial time. And Love gets the outside wall, loses momentum, drops back, might have damaged his vehicle a little bit, enough that maybe David Traynor or TG Reese can come into this. But Mike Grandy, the laps just counting down for him. He's had Bob Cohen unlap himself off of him as well. This is the situation that got Mike Grandy into trouble last time, is when he'd run in clean air, and then suddenly found a little bit of dirty air off some lapped vehicles. He'll be hoping that Bob Cohen's tyre advantage takes him far, far away from him in these final laps.
Yeah, but in it's free to go as they're going to come across the line. Granny just goes as they're going to open up lap 73, so 3 to go for everyone around the racetrack. It's going to be hard. I don't think this gap goes down any more than probably 1.5 seconds if that ever happens. This is Granny's race to lose. The question is this Bobby Love's podium to lose? Because I think Traynor is just going to try to pounce on the next few laps.
John Payne with a firm grip on second place. Bobby Love with that moment just scraping the wall, scraping his confidence, drops a little bit further back into third where David Traynor could close in on him. 2 to go at Chicagoland. Mike Grandy's lead still beyond a second, but shrinking quickly right now.
I think he's just managing at this point. There's no trade-off for him to overdrive the car with 1.5 laps to go, as we're gonna approach the end of the final corner, and we're gonna open up the last lap here, David. 75 laps done and dusted at Chicagoland.
White flag at Chicagoland Speedway for 60+ Racing Adventures Truck Series. Mike Grandy 1.5 seconds in his pocket to John Payne. They were first and second on the grid. They're first and second in the championship, but it looks like Chicagoland's headed the way of Mike Grandy as he heads to turn 3 to go through turn 4 to come out towards the checkered flag. The Chevy Silverado truck of Mike Grandy is going to go from pole to the win at Chicagoland for season 60+ Racing Adventures round 2 at Chicagoland. Grandy wins. John Payne in second, Bobby Love across the line in third. Looks like David Traynor just came short of being able to grab that spot from Bobby Love, and TG Reese from the back of the grid. 5th place, not bad for him. Jack Turner perhaps a little hurt by the timing of that caution that gave everyone else slightly fresher tyres than him. But what a race, well managed by Mike Grandy. No sign of significant tyre fall off or any dramas from him. He is probably about to do a burnout that I'd like to see. There we go. That's the moment for your race winner. Burning it down on the start-finish line. And well deserved after 75 laps with a 1.5 second margin over John Payne. Bobby Love in third. David Traynor finishing fourth with TG Reese in fifth. JC Hay in sixth. Jack Turner seventh. Douglas Beasley eighth. Last truck on the lead lap, Dave Watson, as Jerry Kerr went 1 lap down. And Rick Helms 4 laps down after the damage that he did. And Bob Cohen, a couple of moments for him, including bringing out the only caution of the race. He finished 12th. We can get to our podium now, Lorenzo, and John Payne's going to join you.
Absolutely. So as we have John over here with us, good race over here, John, as it looks like you had a little bit of a struggle sometime during your first stint and second stint with the tires and coping with the dirty draft. Is that basically what happened for you to get second place?
I wasn't sure how much tire saving I needed to do, so I was trying to save tires, but everybody went and the track was cooler than practice. And so then maybe I thought, well, they're not going to fall off so far. When's a caution going to happen? I didn't know. So at the end, I just started like that whole second stint, I was giving it about 95% on those first 10 or 12 laps. And then after that, I was 100% the whole way. So I was just trying to figure out what the best way to handle the fall off of the tires.
Yeah, because I've always heard about Chicagoland being a difficult track for you to discover the optimal fallout. But, second place still retains your one of the top 3 positions in the championship. Going to Darlington, what are your thoughts about the South Carolina Virtual Speedway for your Ford Toyota Tundra?
Well, last season I only ran a few of these races, and that was one of them, and I won it. So, hopefully that can repeat. But so yeah, I like that track. This track, I wasn't. I'd watched a lot of YouTube and done some practice races, and everything I saw said if you're trying to save tires, stay on the lower lane. And so I was trying to do that most of the race, but next thing you know, I look up and the fast lane's the high lane. So everything I learned didn't matter. So I just had to adapt.
Learn, adapt, and overcome, John. Well, congratulations in the second place. We'll see you in Darlington in some time.
Thanks, Lorenzo.
So John Payne joining us after his second place finish, and Mike Grandy joining us after the win. Well, congratulations. Great qualifying effort as well in what was a super, super close field. What happened towards the end of that first stint as you had a really big margin you'd built?
Well, I kind of was trying to, gauge what my tires were going to do. And they did exactly what I thought they'd do. They'd start to fade off towards the end, which kind of made me be a little easier on them in the second run. And it was a little shorter run too, so I wasn't too concerned about it, but it was tough to get in the right position to keep Bobby and John together so they would battle it while I pulled away.
60 Plus Racing Adventures Truck Series goes to a handful of different circuits. We've got 1.5 milers like this, but there's also Daytona coming up in the schedule, and there's some rather tight circuits as well. Darlington and others come to mind. So which is favouring you the most, the super speedways, intermediates, or short tracks?
Honestly, I don't care for the super speedways. That's kind of a gamble. 1.5 miles, John's been really good on them. I'm kind of surprised that I beat him today, but I'll take them when I can get them. I think I'm a little better on short tracks. I don't know how John is. I've never raced him on short tracks, so I guess we'll see. As long as we're not on road courses, I think I'm okay.
It's a shame. I was hoping for trucks on Chicago street circuit instead of trucks on Chicagoland, but that would be a very, very different race than what we just saw. Perhaps a couple more beat-up trucks and a couple more cautions than we had. So we had that yellow right in the middle of the race, basically bang on strategy for everyone, sort of reset the rack and set you all going again.
Yeah, I mean, we run a lot of races without cautions, but it doesn't surprise me that we get one once in a while. Bob's been kind of out of it for a little bit, so you got to give him that. But it was a great race all together, and congrats to John and Rick, and oops, sorry, lost it there.
And so this being at the moment what we expect our only broadcast of the truck series for the year, if someone's watching on and they think I'm 60 plus and that looks like a good bit of fun, would you recommend it to them? And how would you recommend it?
Oh, most definitely recommend it. It's different when you get to be our age. You're not as competitive, you're not as sharp. So to race with our own age group makes it a lot more fun. And we've got a wide range of different cars and tracks and stuff like that. So even if you didn't like ovals, don't let that hold you up, because we got GT3s, we got the Indy type cars, formulas, stuff like that.
Well done. Congratulations. Best wishes. And thank you so much for joining us, Mike.
Thanks. Thank you guys for the broadcast. Thanks to 60 Plus for putting it on. And we appreciate all you guys.
Beautiful. See you next time.
See ya.
Well, Lorenzo, all in all, really good racing for these types of vehicles and this size of speedway. Just enough tyre drop-off, but just enough slipstreaming as well. Gave us a fair bit of everything and some close racing too.
And not only that, I think the weather helped out a little bit, made this more of a pack race than probably would have been in hotter conditions, which always a good thing in our books. Potentially, we could have seen a battle for the lead happening. Let's just say if we had like 5 laps extra, but nevertheless, always good racing on our books. And can never go wrong with trucks in around Chicagoland. But I'll take the Chicago streets any day of the week other than Chicagoland, like you said.
The street circuit's a lot quicker to my favorite cafe. If I want a Cubano and a Cafecito, it'd be tough to get one of them around the speedway here, I reckon, out in Joliet, Illinois. David Haynes with Lorenzo as we brought you round 2 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures Truck Series. Mike Grandy from pole to the win with a caution in the middle and some great truck racing in between. Been a delight to bring it to you from RaceSpotTV. Hope you'll follow us on whatever platform, and we'll see you again soon.